Hi, so I'm Nathaniel Dean with Reliquary Games Studios talking about Clockwork Dominion. For the game, we actually use a custom deck of 100 cards, beautifully illustrated. The cards have a couple of components on it, but the main thing we're going to focus on is the modifiers in the center. As I said, a custom deck of 100 cards. The modifiers go from +5 through -5. The negative ones are in red and have a little minus symbol, so they're nice and visually separate. They let us do a lot of cool things, but one of my personal favorites is we've been able to completely get rid of round-robin wait your turn initiative. You don't have to sit on your hands. You can act, react, and interrupt as it makes sense for what's going on in the scene. So the way we do that is when conflict breaks out, player characters are typically dealt 4 cards. There are some assets or game effects that will actually let you choose, maybe get some additional cards, but you're typically going to be dealt 4 and discard down to 3. So that's the number of times you're going to be able to act in one sequence of combat. A sequence is just a narrative conceit for it's maybe 15-20 seconds. Everyone has a couple of opportunities to do some things. The narrator draws a single hand for all the characters that the narrator is controlling in the scene. This is kept hidden from the players, but the players have theirs up, so that way they can kind of coordinate around the table to get a sense of who's going to be able to act when. So, starting from whoever has the highest card, and in this case, as the narrator, I lucked out. I drew a nice high one at 5. The player with the highest card available has the option to act. You never have to act if you don't want to, because everyone has their own free will. It's kind of an important part of the game. So in this case, I'm going to turn over my initiative card. So let's say that the player characters are walking around, they're being accosted by thugs. So let's say the first bandit is going to become the first active player, and he's going to run up to you. You don't just have to stand there like a statue and wait your turn. You can actually react. So in this case, you can use any of your initiative cards. So typically you're going to use your lowest if you want to react. Flip that over, you're now both acting in an exchange. So each character is active. So the thug that's coming at you has a knife, and that's got a short range. So he's an active character. He's actually going to have one advantageous circumstance, so he's likely to go before you since he's the one who initiated it, but not guaranteed. Let's say that he's running at you down an alleyway, whereas you have a gun. That has much longer range, and he's going to have to use his move before he engages with you. So that actually gives you 2 advantageous circumstances. You actually go first, even though you're the reacting character. So the way the game works, when you're actually testing for success or failure, you're going to take a trait combination. So if you're shooting, it would be Grace plus Firearms. Then you're going to draw the top card off the deck, and you're going to add or subtract that modifier to your base skill. So let's say you're a decent shot and you have a Grace and Firearms plus a 4. Add the 4 for the card, that's going to be an 8, and if that's higher than the physical defense of the person you're trying to shoot, you've succeeded on the test. If it's lower, then you failed. If it's a 0, because sometimes you'll get a tie, if both characters are active, it rounds down to a failure. If you're the only active character, then it would go up to a success. So in this case, you've shot the brigand before he's actually able to close with you. So he suffers a wound. He's going to lose 1 unused initiative card as he's kind of staggered. So wounds are really serious. They slow him down significantly. And he's now going to make a test against you. It's a -1, which maybe if he was a good combatant, he might be able to tag you. But since he's been wounded, he's suffering additional wound penalties. So that's actually going to penalize him further. That would be a miss. This is also why guns are terrifying, because they go direct to dealing wounds. Wounds are serious business in the game. They're not just like, oh no, I have been stabbed, I take 4 hit points of damage. It is, oh no, I have been stabbed in the kidney, I will start going into shock and bleeding out until I die if I don't receive some type of medical attention. If you're not dealing with firearms, though, and you're just in hand-to-hand combat, we have another interesting idea called guard. Because if you and I were in a fight, we wouldn't just be standing there like statues. So most player characters are going to have a guard of 2 if they've got a weapon. As you get a successful attack, you'll actually work your opponent's guard down. Every successful attack will remove a point of guard. And that's because you're getting them tired, you're getting them wrong-footed, so they're not able to properly defend themselves. So you don't have to worry about trying to take special actions to defend yourself, you're assumed to be doing it naturally. Once your guard is down, then you're vulnerable. At that point, that's when any type of attack can inflict wounds, or if you choose, you can actually inflict conditions. Conditions are also on the cards, so that way you never have to stop play to figure out what's going on with rules or special scenarios. So let's say that, we'll rewind, let's say that the when you drew that 4, if you actually beat your opponent's defense by 4 or more, or 8 or more, you get additional effects off the flip. So that's when you can hit conditions. So let's say if you were shooting with him, that would have a potency 3, he doesn't have armor, you would actually draw 3 cards, and you could choose any of those conditions to hit him with. So it doesn't slow down play. So if someone's guard is down, you can also choose any condition. So it's like, if I work down your guard and I want to disarm you, cool, I just need to make a successful attack, I don't need special rules to do so. So combat is just going to go back and forth, but let's say that even though you're getting getting some advantage on this one, you want to go to try to act again and try to finish him off before he can do anything back to you. But one of the other villains, they can actually use 2 cards to interrupt, and this is available for anybody at the table. If you use 2 cards, you immediately become the active player, and you get your full turn. Nobody else can react or interrupt. So that's where you get those cinematic moments where you see the glint of the assassin's scope and run over and shove the Prime Minister out of the way before he can be shot. You have the villain that you've been chasing for the last 6 sessions is about to hop on a rail car as it pulls away from the station, but you interrupt, you run forward, you grab him by the collar before he can flee yet again. So it's a very narrative combat, and because anyone can jump in, react, or interrupt at any time, no one's going to be pulling out their cell phones, no one's going to be checking Facebook, going up to say, you know, I'm going to go get snacks, I'll be back in 15 minutes, because combat is fast and fluid and exciting.
Sure.
So combat's going to keep going back and forth until all sides have used all of their initiative cards, at which point everything gets gathered back up, and the whole deck is reshuffled, so that way it never becomes deterministic. You never see every card in the deck.
Nice. So how do you think this, I think you could integrate this system into some other game? Like if you really like the setting of, I don't know, 5th edition or whatever, but you hate the dice rolling, do you think this would work well for that?
So to that point, yes, people can and absolutely have. We think our setting is pretty great,
yeah.
But if you like the mechanic, I actually had one gentleman last year walked up to me at the booth and just looked me dead in the eye and said, I hate steampunk. I think your theme is terrible, and I'm never going to play in your world. So I was just like, I'm sorry to hear that, and in the back of my head I'm kind of wondering, why are we having this conversation? And then he leaned down to the table, picked up the core book, a deck of cards, and he said, however, I am never using another initiative system or another set of base mechanics for any game I play again for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's
and
so
walked
cool.
over, and he said, goodbye, I will also never talk to you again. I just walked over, checked out, and I hope that he is having a blast playing, using the mechanics.
Oh, that's really, because this seems really innovative. So now obviously you've got a core rule book. For those of us who are lazy GMs, do you have like adventure modules, or have you done any of that kind of stuff yet?
Yes, so we do have, if you go to drivethrurpg.com and search for Clockwork Dominion, we do have a quick start rule set that has a full adventure, 6 pre-made characters, and an artless deck of the cards, and that is available for free. So you can download that and you can start playing it tonight. We're also going to be having some other PDF releases, so we should be getting some other adventures out in the next couple of months. And before the end of the year, we're also going to be releasing a full campaign book, Highland Spirits, which is actually going to be at least a 9 to 12 session campaign, starting in the Highlands of Scotland, but very quickly then leaving the mortal world entirely, and it'll actually be out exploring some of the far edges of the clockwork and the unintended realms and domains of the Fae. So again, that should be out before the end of the year, so Q4 2017.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right.
And we'll definitely be watching because this sounds really cool.
Awesome. Thanks very much for chatting. It's great.